Welcome to the Third Degree Masonic Podcast, where we are always on the level. I'm your host, Brother Samuel.
And I'm your co-host, Brother Gabriel. Craftsmen, before we get into our episode, we have a memorial we'd like to share with you. We would like to take a moment of silence to remember a good friend of the podcast and fraternity, as well as Sam and I's DMLA Dad advisor, Worshipful Brother David Webb. We will be doing a memorial episode very soon. Craftsmen, if you could please join us in our moment of silence.
Now, Craftsmen, we have two very special guests for you today. Brother Tate from the Valley of Toledo and Brother Dewey from the Valley of the Firelands. Two brothers from Scottish Rite Freemasonry who have sat down with us today to talk everything Scottish Rite and its impact on what it does to the fraternity and in their personal lives. Hopefully by the end of this, you will learn something new about Scottish Rite Freemasonry that you didn't know before. And if you were on the fence about joining, maybe this will give you everything you need to take that first step. Without any further ado, let's begin. And today, I would like to welcome Brother Tate and Brother Dewey. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So first off, I'd like to start with each of you kind of talking about what your Blue Lodge experience is, what lodge you belong to, and kind of introduce yourself. Tell the listeners a little bit about yourselves.
I ain't going first. Well, then I'm going to start off by saying I'm Mark Allred then. So I'm Brother John Tate. I've been a Mason a little over 7 years. I joined Gibsonburg Lodge. And for those of you who don't know where that's at, don't feel bad because I still have trouble getting there sometimes. But Blue Lodge has been probably, other than being a father, one of the single most enjoyable things in my adult life. I didn't know it at the time, but when I joined, I was getting ready to go through some personal stuff. And so the brethren were just an immense help with, support going through things. And I think people just, in today's society, we think we can get on a streaming service or look it up on Google. And there's something to be said for actually going into a room with, your brethren. And it's just amazing. So I've had a ton of fun with that. And I think it's something that I'm just going to keep promoting until I don't have any breath.
Amen to that, brother.
What was the question that you
see? Should have gone first. Yeah.
What is your home lodge and what brought you into Freemasonry?
I'm a member at Clyde Monticello. What brought me into Masonry, I was curious. I had been watching the History Channel for a very long time, and I saw all the horrible programs that made Masons out to be evil people, and I thought, there's got to be more to the story. And over the years, I'm in sales. I own the guitar shop in Fremont, and I've dealt with a lot of great people, but I've also dealt with some people that have caused problems. When you're in business, you're going to run into those kinds of people. You kind of lose faith in humanity. And I needed to surround myself with better people. And that's what Masonry has done for me. I joined. I've loved the process. I've learned so much. It's been a really good thing for me. It's really helped me open up. 5 years ago, before I joined, I never would have done a podcast like this. And I'm doing it now, and I'm having a good time. So,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so the first question I have for you guys, and mostly for our listeners so they can have a little bit of context here. What is the Scottish Rite?
I get to go first this time?
Trapped.
For me, the Scottish Rite is a continuation of degree work, but it's also a collection of Masons that they're serious about their journey, but they also want that camaraderie. It's like they can't get enough of Masonry. That's how I look at it. I can't get enough of it. I want to keep learning. There's 29 more degrees. You can really grow as a person if you pay attention to those degrees. I mean, the first 3 that you get in Blue Lodge are great. But if you really want to extend and expand your mind, Scottish Rite is a great way to do that. What do you think, Brother Tate?
I agree wholeheartedly. So to me, we spend all our time saying Masonry is not a religion, and it is not a religion. But there's a lot of parallels. And for me, Scottish Rite is kind of like Sunday school. So you go to Sunday school and you get all these lessons on things that you should do. And that's kind of how the degrees in Scottish Rite play out. And, you know, and again, this is just in my viewpoint. So the way I look at it is the one that I remember the most is the story of Joseph being sold into slavery in Egypt. And, you know, throughout the degree part, you know, without giving away the stuff we're not supposed to talk about, it teaches you the parable lesson, kind of similar to how the Bible does it. But it does it in a format that gets everybody engaged. It gets all the brothers playing parts and doing roles. And so you're getting the message, which hopefully is getting down in, and you're also playing a part to an audience. So you've got people that are watching, people that are doing. And so it just expounds upon your Masonic journey by giving you that much more that you can do. And it's just another way to build fellowship and camaraderie, like Dustin said. So that's been my experience with it.
That was kind of my experience as well with it when I was going through it. So you both are from different, what we would call in Blue Lodge, we would call them a lodge.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are both from different valleys.
Yes. Yeah, we had arm wrestle before we came up here.
See who was going to make it.
Yeah, I'm from the Valley of the Firelands. You're from the Valley of Toledo.
Valley of Toledo. And then within the valleys, then you've still got, you've got the Princes of Jerusalem. You've got the Lodge of Perfection.
Rose Croix.
Yep. Yeah.
There you go.
So is there lodges within the valleys then? Is that kind of structured?
They're called lines. And basically they're just groups of officers that they're responsible for the degrees, for certain numbers of the degrees, those other 29 degrees. So you get officers and they serve to set up the CAS. They deal with the venues. They really do all the behind the scenes stuff. It's basically, you've got 4, they are kind of like lodges where, when you come in a lodge, you've got your officer group. Well, it's the same way there. Each line has their officer group and they do all the behind the scenes stuff to make it happen.
Yeah. I like to help out with like serving food and making sure everyone's comfortable. And I'm in the Lodge of Perfection.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I love it. We have a great time, and I love my brothers, and I can't wait to see them. I mean, that's what gets me out of bed at 5:30 in the morning, to be, 70 miles away by 8 in the morning, setting up audio equipment and, making sure that the donuts get there on time, and, Arnie's bringing the donuts.
And we kid each other, but the reality is there's no competition and there's no like that. We just pick on each other because it's fun. But no, the reality is like, all things aside, I've never seen that many guys work well together, to be honest.
Yeah.
Just like one of my favorite things, I like sitting at the tables and helping with registration, and seeing that guy when he gets that candidate, he's coming in for his first time coming into the Scottish Rite. I just love sitting there and talking to him and telling him why it's going to be a good experience, what he can expect. And, of course, then I think everybody tells him, hey, if you have any questions, see me or see that guy, whoever.
And you kind of get to spend time with each guy when they come up to the registration desk. So, get to say hello and give them that first impression.
Yeah.
At least that was mine, because typically, if I remember correctly, the setup is you show up in the morning for these reunions, and first things first, you got to sign in and get your passport stamped.
Yeah.
So we'll just jump into some questions that we came up with. So how did you come to be members of the Scottish Rite?
Well, for me, it was one of your guys' former guests. a couple months after I got my Master Mason degree, Rick Crow showed up with a petition and handed it to me, said, you need to fill this out. And, you know, as laughable as that is, and, you know, it is, because guys that are in Masonry, like we know, there's so many appendant bodies and so many different things you can do. You literally do. You get guys that come up to you and say, hey, you should do this. And you don't know anything else about it, but you trust the guy that says, hey, here. And, you know, for me, I filled out the application. I had absolutely no idea other than the picture on the wall that has all the appendant body stuff on it. I didn't know anything about Scottish Rite. And I showed up to the venue and, you know, immediately I started, number one, meeting guys that I would be very close to within the next year or two. I also started seeing some people that I actually knew from the community where I grew up, and I just never even knew they were a Mason. They were members of Scottish Rite, and it was like, hey. So yeah, it was a very surreal day going through all the things. I think it was 4 degrees that they put on that day. And, you know, at the end of the day, then we had enough degrees in that I was able to get that 32nd degree. You know, I was able to see that ceremony, and that was very, very special and touching. So
That's actually one of my favorite ones.
mm-hmm.
I think out of all of them that I did see while I was a member, that one was my favorite.
Yeah.
I think for me, after joining, I was observing the poster on the wall that showed all the steps on the one side, and it showed York Rite on one side, Scottish Rite on the other. And I'm like, what's the deal with all these other degrees? And Paul Watt was a member at Monticello, pretty cool guy. He's like, well, if you want to find out, let's go to the fall reunion in Tiffin. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And I've seen all 29 degrees now, and I keep going back for more. I like to re-see them. The other cool thing, too, is like in the winter months, if you don't feel like traveling, they do that Thursday night at the Rite online. And hell, I got probably 7 or 8 of my degrees just sitting in my living room watching on TV. It was great.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's one of the other good things about Scottish Rite is nobody says, hey, you have to see all 29 degrees within 3 years.
Yeah.
You know, you go at your own pace. If you want to see 2 degrees a year, knock yourself out. You know, if you want to go to other states and get them all in within 6 months, guess what? You can.
Yep.
So
I actually had a really interesting experience for getting my degrees. Half of the time, I had never seen the degrees. I was in them. So somebody would call me and say, hey, we need this part. And I'm like, I've never seen that degree. And they're like, whatever, it doesn't matter. We'll sign your stuff.
Yeah.
If you're in it, you've seen it.
Yeah.
Like, you've seen the script. So, and I think that's how I got 90% of mine. But always a good time. Always, you know, there's this kind of camaraderie when you're putting on those degrees, you know, because you get there the night before and you do a drive run through, and then you get through all of them, and then you go out for pizza and beer afterwards and hang out.
Yeah.
And the next day you're there first thing in the morning putting on these degrees for all these guys. It's
and it's fun.
It is. It's a blast.
We talk about it, you know, the Blue Lodge level. How do we get guys engaged? How do we get guys to do stuff? And you know, the thing is, we have to do it. And kind of like this, you know, somebody had an idea and somebody else agreed and said, yeah, you know, we could probably do that. And then, you know, guys come together and start doing things. And then next thing you know, you wonder how you never used to do it. Well, we all talk about, well, how could, you know, what do we do to get guys to join the Scottish Rite? Exactly what we're doing. Going out to lodges and giving presentations. You guys were at Gibsonburg.
That's why this is happening right now, is coming here for the Valley of the Firelands to giving a presentation to try to get more people interested.
Yeah.
And now we're doing a podcast.
Yeah. And then, you know, Dustin and I have been friends for quite a long time. And he had said, hey, you know, how do we get this, you know, everybody thinks that our valleys are like, I don't know, in disagreement, or I don't know what the term should be, but kind of like, you know, you guys are over here and we're over here. And we said, well, how do we bring everybody together? I said, I think doing a podcast together would be an excellent idea, just to say, you know, no, there's no discord. There's nothing going on. It's just, you know.
How about we put it this way? There's nothing that we can do about the past.
Exactly.
But we can do everything about the future.
Yeah.
if we just stay focused and we journey together.
And we're all friends and brothers. So,
Yeah. Let's just make it happen.
Yeah.
And for the listeners, that don't know anything about it, that thought probably comes from the fact that you guys are in such close proximity to each other.
Yes.
Almost like two.
Yeah, we live on the border.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're, so you're doing stuff over here, and then Toledo's doing stuff over here, and they just kind of, sometimes there's some intersection there, and it's,
there's history that stuff that happened way before I ever joined, or even John.
Yeah.
But I don't care about that stuff.
Yeah.
What I care about is moving forward, growing, both organizations coming together, and enjoying each other's company while we are learning
absolutely
about being better people.
Well, and we're all brothers at the end of the day. I mean, it kind of goes back to that, old adage of, doesn't matter what lodge you belong to, we're all Masons. Show my brother.
The cool thing is I've never been afraid to walk into another lodge. I walk in and I got all these people coming up to me, and we're all friends instantly. It's the greatest feeling in the world. You don't have to be guarded about anything.
That's right.
So speaking of both valleys independently, what is it about each valley that makes it special? What is it about Toledo Valley that really keeps you going back? And the same thing for the Valley of the Firelands. What makes your valley unique?
Well, for me, it really started off with just the guys that were a part of it. And it's probably how it is for Dustin too. You start to meet individuals, and then you see them on a regular basis, and you help them with degrees. You build these relationships, and once you've forged that, if a stranger calls you up on the phone and asks you something, you're more likely to say, yeah, and click.
Right.
But if your best friend calls you up on the phone and says, hey, a tree limb came down in my backyard, got a chainsaw? You're there,
Yes, I do.
And, so for me, that, and there's a combination also, I'm an officer, just like, he's an officer. So we did, take obligations that we will be there and do stuff. So that, I think we're obligated to go back and do things. But we wouldn't have taken the obligation part if we didn't enjoy the fellowship and, the experience. So that's for me, that's where I land with it.
Why do you keep stealing everything I want to say?
You keep letting me go first.
Well, I have a good one for you, and you can go first on that. What kind of activities, so we've talked kind of about the extra degrees, what kind of other activities does the Scottish Rite do?
Valley of the Firelands prides itself on, we try to show, we do, all 29 degrees within a 3-year period. So if you really want to try to speed through those degrees and really see them quite a few times, it works out really well. There's a lot of locations. There's a central area where we show a lot of the degrees, but we try to show them on the outskirts too, because we realize someone doesn't want to have to drive 100 miles to see a degree. If they can, see 3 degrees right at their home lodge during any particular year, usually we can make that happen. What was the other part of the question?
What kind of activities do you guys do?
Well, we do a lot of eating, which is really a great thing. We're doing Celebrate the Rite and Rite On, which are 2 different social events. Usually I think it's in Sycamore this upcoming Saturday for a Rite On event. I think it's Rite On. It's either Rite On or Celebrate the Rite. And it's just an awards banquet. As you progress through your journey, you see all 29 degrees, you get your hat pinned, or if you become an officer, you get your yellow cap. It's just a great way to hang out with people and have really good dinner, and sometimes we'll have entertainment. I don't know. What do you think? What do you guys do in Toledo?
So in addition to the reunions that we have twice a year, there's a Christmas party. There's usually something around the Valentine's holiday they call it a sweetheart dinner. The guys can take their wives or girlfriends, not both.
Preferably not.
Yeah. That's another Masonic joke.
Right.
But then we also try to do stuff like during the summer too. We have planned a kayak trip And we've really been focused since COVID on looking at, the things that we can do, to get guys out, to get guys active. And
Oh yeah, car shows, that kind of stuff.
yes, exactly. And I think everybody's looking at those, how can we do this and what can we do? And then, trying to build the whole puzzle, I guess would be a good way to say it. That Valley of Excellence Award is something that helps do that, because it really outlines your criteria. And for anybody who's not familiar, in order to get the Valley of Excellence, there's a list of things, and like you might have to have 3 out of 5 or 8 out of 10, and then if you achieve that, you get this Valley of Excellence Award. And now that's something I think we actually do have competition, because we're always trying to see who got it, who was the
pulls it
first
off.
one. Yeah. Did you guys get yours in a month before we did?
Oh, jeez.
And we do, and we laugh because it's what we're really doing is patting each other on the back, saying, great job. You guys are doing awesome. And, and they do the same. And I feel like we are always telling each other, hey, like you've told me before, or Dwight Damschroeder has done it, where he's like, hey, we're showing these 3 degrees, if you want to get them, or if you know somebody that needs them. And, or we'll come in and say, hey, are you coming to the reunion? We're going to be close this time. So that's the activity side is something that a lot of times you can involve your family with, and not just we do enough of the going to meetings, just the guys. It's really nice to get, even somebody from out in the community who might end up becoming a Mason someday. That's the activity stuff that's really enjoyable.
So based off of what I'm hearing, it's kind of like, so you got your Blue Lodge, and then obviously to join Scottish Rite, you have to be a Mason in a Blue Lodge.
Correct.
This is kind of a an add-on experience, something to do together with your Blue Lodge. It's not like, okay, well, I've got my 3 degrees in Blue Lodge, now I'm going to go over to Scottish Rite, and that's just where I'm going to stay.
Yeah, if you quit Blue Lodge, I'll come find you.
Yeah, Blue Lodge is vitally important, because without Blue Lodge, you wouldn't have anything else.
No.
You got to support Blue Lodge first.
And that's, I think we're seeing statewide, you hear the older guys talking about how, there was 120,000 Masons in Ohio 30 years ago or 40 years ago. We're down around 60 now. And
Has it really gotten down to 60?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it's like 62, 64.
Jeez.
Depending on how many have passed this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so we still have the same number of bodies and groups, but we've only got half the guys
Doing
to fill the spots. So yes, there's a lot of guys that are doing a lot. And most of those are guys that are starting to get older now. So it's up to us younger guys who are busy with our lives and our jobs and our families. But when you take stock of, I was fortunate. I joined Masonry at a time where I have 2 groups of kids. I have an older group and a younger group. And at the time, I didn't have my younger kids. So my older kids were graduating from high school. I was bored.
Fair enough.
And, I had watched enough TV over my lifetime to know that I wanted to do something else other than sit in front of a TV. So I joined Masonry. And, then I had 2 more children who are now age 5 and 4. And so, yeah, there's a lot of times where I have to make that balance and that choice. But Masonry is so good and so fun that, like, I want to be there all the time. I do have times where I have to say, hey, I really can't do this one, but I want to be there all the time. And, this instance right here, when Dustin says, hey, what do you think about doing this? I'm like, yeah, let's
do it.
Let's pick a date and do it. And, because what else would I be doing right now? It's Saturday, holiday weekend.
You'd be planing boards in your basement.
You're right. You're right.
It's nothing wrong with shamming over activities.
Yeah.
My grass hasn't been cut in 3 weeks.
Ugh.
It's okay.
Thanks a lot, Masonry.
Yeah, thanks, Masonry. So, how do the degrees, as much as you can tell without getting ourselves in trouble, how do the degrees in Scottish Rite differ from the degrees in Blue Lodge?
So there's core values that the Scottish Rite has adopted, and each one of those degrees focuses on one or two or three of the core values in life, like having integrity to what you do, being honorable, having reverence for God. Those are brought into these degrees to try to show you that there might be another way to solve a situation that you haven't necessarily thought of, but there is a way. And if you follow these integral parts, these core values, you'll always come out on the right side of things. So, yeah, with 29 more degrees, you can really learn a lot. And every time you see, like I've seen some of these degrees, 4 or 5, 6 times, right? You catch a glimpse of something different every time you see that degree that you're like, oh, okay, that, and it really starts to sink in. And then when you're out and about on your daily life doing something, you happen to think about, you run up against a new challenge with somebody, and you're like, well, how would the guy from that degree handle that situation? Oh, he did this. Okay, let's try this instead of falling back on what you've always done in the past that might have gotten you in trouble. So it comes back to making you a better person. Really.
I think Blue Lodge is very personal. It's self-centered and self-focused. And when you start getting into the appendant bodies, it's more social, and it helps you with interacting, with the world and how you should be to other people. Not that Blue Lodge isn't teaching you that, or that you can't glean that from it, but it's just the focus. When you're going through your degrees in Blue Lodge, you're learning how to be, or how to act, or how to conduct yourself. When you get into the Scottish Rite, you're still learning how to be, act, and conduct yourself, but more with the world or with the brethren, as opposed to just focusing on you.
That makes sense. What I really liked, for me, more on a practical aspect, I really liked that the degrees for Scottish Rite were more of almost theatric productions. You guys have the lights, you got the sound guy, you got the costumes, the specific costume. You're not using the same costume for, all 3 degrees. You've got a costume for this guy, and everybody knows their lines. It's written out. Like, as a previous theater kid, you got your lines. You are this guy. You're not, Walker number 10. You are this guy's name, and you can kind of imagine what he is and develop a personality from him. And trust me, we've got some, if I remember correctly from the Valley of Toledo, you got some actors in there.
Oh, we do. Yeah, we have some characters.
Some of the degrees, you just show up and it's a video that you watch.
Oh, I forgot about they do the videos too.
Yeah, there's videos, kind of like Thursday Night at the Rite. Then there's plays, and then there's table degrees. I think that's what they call them, where everyone just gets a script, and you don't practice. You just read your part. But when I first did my first table degree, I was really nervous about it. I thought, I don't want to seem like an idiot. I can barely read the way it is. But I tell you what, I had a great time, and whenever we do table degrees now, I love it.
Yeah. Well, and it's because if there's something that I don't know if we're losing, but if there's something that's falling by the wayside, it's our, interacting in social environments. And this teaches you how to do that, because it's not just you, it's you and 8 other guys. And somebody will say, hey, what if you read this like this? Or what if you put this intonation on it? And that's what I love about the practices. You show up for practice and the guy will say, hey, what if you did it this way?
What if you said it in an Irish accent?
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about?
I have no clue.
I don't, not at all. And I'm sure he's listening, because I know he listens to the show. He's going to get a good laugh out of that.
Well, and it's so much fun because you have that diversity. We have a guy that he does almost all our audio and video, and he's just absolutely amazing, Brother Jason Shammy. And he has done so much with this, with like backgrounds and this AV,
Oh yeah.
And who would have thought, like, when I first started in the Scottish Rite, I mean, we were all doing different roles and different parts, but just to see his progression to where he's doing this now, and he's really diving into it. Like
Oh yeah.
some of the details that he's pulled out, he says, "Hey, check this out. This is what I did some studying and I found this," and he incorporates it into the background, which not everybody gets it, but it's just nice because number one, he's doing research in order to do that, and then especially the guys that are in the degree or that are at the practices, we can appreciate it. It's just phenomenal, and it's a good time. So
Well, and it seems like based on the different ways of getting degrees, we don't all learn these lessons one way.
correct.
So having that ability to do a sit down and read through of the degree or watch it as a video for Thursday night at the Rite, or in my case, acting in it, having never seen it, acting out the part, we all learn them a different way, but the lesson still comes through. We're not just stuck into one mode of travel, which is really cool to hear because, just like in Blue Lodge, not every guy is able to look at that exam and memorize it, bring it back. So now we have the second option of, short form. And, you think it's going to be easier. It's really not, because you have to dig into that second way of doing it and you actually have to explain it. And I, the first time I helped somebody go through it, I was like, whoa, I don't know that answer.
Yeah. Well, and that's what it's designed, excuse me. It's not designed to be easier. It's designed, what you get out of it by memorization. Same thing in the Scottish Rite. What do you get out of memorization? It gets down in you, and it gets ingrained. But the same can be said if you have to talk about the way that you feel about it. So, in Blue Lodge, the principles of proficiency, there's a lot of questions on that where it's very much how do you feel and what does this say to you? And you have to dive into the meaning behind that. Well, that's what the Scottish Rite is really doing with all the degrees is if you let it work the way that it's supposed to, you're digesting all these little things, all these little details, all the characters and, the message behind it and what they're saying and what it means. So that's one of the things that I started looking not just at the character that I'm playing or that I'm reading, but what's the message from the degree as a whole.
Absolutely. Well, and I mean, at the grand scheme of it, the whole point of doing the degree is to teach the lesson. So if you yourself don't know the lesson, how are you going to convey it to the guys that, are watching you do it?
Yeah.
You can learn multiple lessons from the same degree. And there's guys that have completed their passport book 3 or 4 times. They've seen all the degrees that many times, and they keep coming back to watch them.
Yeah. They are impressive.
Yeah.
Because we still need to learn. You had hit on something earlier where you said you've seen these degrees multiple times and you learn something new. That's what I've said that about the lectures in Blue Lodge is, the first time you heard the lecture, you were blindfolded,
Right.
And then the second time you're sitting on the side while somebody else is getting it, or you're at an inspection or, we're blessed that we could even travel outside of our district, our jurisdiction, our state. We can go around the world. Fremont Brainerd Lodge has a guy that's getting ready to travel overseas and, get to see how they do things over in Europe.
Oh, geez.
And
that'll be exciting.
Yeah. So it's the same way where, you sit and you listen to these things. That's why it's imperative to, if you haven't been to reunion, come back, go watch a video, go to a different valley, go see, how other guys are doing things, bring back ideas,
I think Scottish Rite really helped me. I mean, it's a chance to go visit all the other lodges as well. And so now I have my friend base is just increased exponentially. I'm thinking, I'd love to come over to this lodge twice a month,
Yeah.
And I'd never been here before, but Scottish Rite brought me here.
Yeah.
So we'd love to have you.
Yeah, I think I'll start showing up.
We're working on some
around here
fun stuff. Hey, that's what we do here. We walked in the one time and all the chairs were on the floor, and the next thing you know, we're figuring out how we screwed up putting up a chair rack.
There you go.
But I'll leave that with, based off of what you were both saying from one of our previous guests, Brother Jim Taylor. show me a man that stopped learning, and I'll show you a Mason that put down his working tools. And I think that absolutely fits what you guys are saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we are going to take a quick short break, listeners, and go to intermission. And when we come back, we're going to dive even deeper into Scottish Rite Freemasonry. Stay tuned.
Welcome back, craftsmen, to the Third Degree Masonic Podcast. Thank you for rejoining us with Brothers Tate and Dewey from the Valley of the Firelands and the Valley of Toledo. Brothers, welcome back.
Thank you.
Hi.
So, we're going to get into continuing our interview with kind of more, as you said earlier, Brother Dewey, looking into the future rather than the past, because that's been a big focus point of this podcast the entire time since we've started, is establishing an idea of the fraternity for people who don't know what it is already, but also giving a solid idea of where we're going in the future. So we've always prided ourselves on our education. So with all the speculative ideas of the future that we have and planning to go forward, we really like to put emphasis on revitalizing Masonic education. We have several Masters of the Craft of the Royal Schofield Society here at Genoa Lodge, and that's something that we're really proud of. Do you guys have a lot of education programs through your valleys? Do you guys have a lot of education awards? Do you guys work with the DEOs and the education officers of lodges to coordinate projects, coordinate education events?
Was it Hawks Grade Academy?
Yeah, Houts Grade Academy.
Yeah.
That's very similar to the Royal Schofield, but that's exclusively the Scottish Rite. And then, yeah, most of the Valley secretaries or any of the ambassadors that are wanting to go out and to do presentations will get with usually like a lodge secretary. But, let's say you wanted to go to a lodge and you didn't know the secretary, you could absolutely go to like a DEO or a deputy and, kind of make an inroad or something like that. But yeah, there's a lot on the, on the Scottish Rite side that you can go and do extra as far as the education goes, not just the degree work.
There's the Pathfinder program,
Yes.
and you get issued your Pathfinder book. You go on the website and you complete these tasks, which are, it could be something as simple as go to a degree and talk to this certain person that has a position in the lodge or in the organization and get their signature and find out what their job is, blah, blah, blah. There's all sorts of different ways you can, it really helps you open up and learn who you're surrounding yourself with and why they're doing what they're doing and how they're doing what they're doing. And it's just, yeah, there's so many ways you can educate yourself. It's never ending, really.
Well, I really like that. I'm glad that the valleys have as much emphasis on education as some of the other programs that we work with do. I unfortunately don't know much about the valleys. I haven't joined Scottish Rite yet.
Shame on you.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
Even my
Here's a petition.
I raised my father in the Master Mason degree. The previous Grand Master was here at this lodge in Genoa, and he and I raised my father in the Master Mason degree. It was beautiful. And he has already long since started his Scottish Rite journey. So he's very happy and enthused with it. It's just with being master, being a new father, working out some stuff with the guard, as well as working out some stuff with my career and potentially moving. It's been hard to devote myself to the extracurricular parts of Freemasonry.
And that's true with so many people. Like, we spend our childhood finding all these things to do. We get into sports, we get into music, whatever the case may be. But then when we get to, once we get through, some people go to college, some people do the trade school thing. Once we get into our career, that's pretty much it. Like, we work, we go home. And our society teaches us that we really don't have time for anything else. And, Masonry is one of those things where you start to look around and go, you know what? Wait a minute. Yeah, I do. Like, and not that you don't, you've gone through all the chairs to be the master of your lodge. There's a fair amount of time that's been dedicated to that. It's not like you just like woke up and did each thing. Like, you've studied, you've memorized stuff, you've gone to the meetings throughout the year.
You tell him, John.
Well, because I'm patting him on the back.
Yeah,
saying good job.
I appreciate that. This has been a pretty stressful tenure as master this year.
But look back. If you look back, I was fortunate enough to get to watch a lot of your progression as you went through the officers' chairs. And when you look backward, and I say this as a past master, when you're going through it, it's like, yeah, I'm surprised you still have hair. Mine's shorter. Because you just start, oh my gosh. And it's almost like the wedding, where you're planning your wedding and you want everything to be perfect. And you know what? The only person that knows it didn't go absolutely the way that you wanted it to is you. The 60 guys sitting over here are just going, man, that was awesome.
See, that's actually kind of the opposite. I was very willing to just let stuff fall as it did with my wedding and everything. But with Lodge, we had a few rough years with COVID. We had a few rough problems with losing members, and we really needed to revitalize things. And I came in as I had always been really gung-ho, like, we're going to do this. And I think I might have bit off a little bit more than I can chew, set a little too high of expectations, and got a little disappointed because I couldn't meet those high expectations.
Sure. At least you had expectations.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You want to have high expectations, so you get more done. If you don't have those expectations, you're just going to sit around.
Yeah.
You're not going to get stuff done. So you got to push yourself.
Yes. And I've told guys that, you know what, absolutely make a plan. Please make a plan. Please have a plan. And then, you know what, if we accomplish a couple things on that list, great.
Yep.
We've done an excellent job. If we get them all done, super great. Like, then I feel like we all get to have a pizza party. But yeah, you have to have a plan. But we also have to realize, especially, I'm going to go there. This is a male fraternity, and we are men. We have to accept the fact that we're going to plan, we're going to make a list, and if we don't get all the way through it, it's that old line from Batman, why do we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves up and keep going.
Well, I really like that, and I appreciate the vote of confidence on my performance and tenure as master, because it's been quite the struggle with everything else I've got going on in my life. But I do really appreciate it, brothers. So thank you. So to kind of tie back into the Valley part of Freemasonry, do you guys get a lot of like communications and volunteers from Blue Lodges? Like, do you guys have, like, say, our lodge in Genoa contacting your valleys and going, hey, do we have education events, or hey, do you guys need help with anything? Like, is there good communication between Blue Lodges and the valleys?
We have for Firelands, we have a district meeting once a month, and we all sit down and brainstorm about how can we make everything more accessible? How can we advertise better? How can we get more people at these events? And being that we're all from all these different lodges, it just kind of naturally falls into place. I mean, yeah, I'm one of the only well, I'm not the only one, but from the Valley of the Firelands that goes to Clyde, Monticello. All right. A lot of the guys are, typical, they're busy with life and stuff, but I never miss a chance to say, hey, are you going to be at chapter this week? Okay. Next week, they're showing the 4th degree. We could get you in as a new member. You want to do it? Come on. And I never give up. I'm always talking to my brothers that aren't Scottish Rite Masons, trying to convince them that this is the next step in their journey. And it's there if they want to do it. I'm not guilt tripping them.
Yes,
Like we just did with you. But, I would really love the chance to see them broaden their horizons, and it gives me a chance to hang out with them more. So maybe I'm just greedy. I don't know, but.
Well, and you're not greedy. That approach is exactly what we have to do.
I love being around my brothers.
Yeah. And we know that everybody's going to love it when they get in and start doing it too. And so we have to keep saying it, even though, like, I know full well if I come and say, hey, Gabe, you want to join Scottish Rite? And you say, hey, so give me like a year or 2 more years. I totally understand that. I'm not going to we talk about all the time, we can't get discouraged if you make that offer and the guy can't take you up on it or doesn't take you up on it. You can't get discouraged. You got to keep going and saying, hey, Scottish Rite, Scottish Rite, Scottish Rite, Scottish Rite, Scottish, and we do. We have to change that mentality that I don't know if there's an age attached to it or if it's just life or whatever, but when somebody tells you no, you just say, oh, and you hang your face and say, okay, I'm taking my football and going home. And, with regards to what we're doing with Masonry, with Scottish Rite, you have to put that out there and understand that it's not a good time for somebody, and understand that they're not there in their journey yet. They're just not ready to make that trip. So that's, and keep doing it.
It's the hardest part of recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in DMLA, I was the same way. I was very bashful and very, very withdrawn about recruiting. But nowadays, I push DMLA and Freemasonry, not like actively recruiting, obviously, but I try to be a good representative for Freemasonry in the world. And a good fisherman casts many nets.
Mm-hmm.
When we just did a recruiting event for the Guard, and I talked to maybe a few hundred people, maybe we'll get 3 guys that'll enlist.
Mm-hmm.
But that's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
For my reenactment units, it's the same way. For Freemasonry, it's the same thing of we're out doing a booth at an event, but you still shake people's hands, you're nice to them, you represent the fraternity in a good way, and maybe you'll get 1 or 2 guys come knocking.
It's all about persistence.
It is.
So it's good that you guys are encouraging that and being positive with that in terms of the Valley overall, because I assume the Valley is much like Blue Lodge are kind of in a odd spot with membership, because some valleys probably have good membership, but some Blue Lodges are kind of fluctuating in their membership, trying to get guys to come back or new guys to come in.
I wouldn't say that about Valley of Toledo or Valley of Firelands. Every year we keep growing, and we're getting people from further and further away. We'll have people show up from New York, Pennsylvania. I think we had a guy from, like, we did the 12th degree up in Port Clinton last week. I think there was a guy from New Jersey there. So, and a lot of these other valleys in different states, it might take you 10 years for them to show all those degrees. So if you never leave your valley, it's going to be a long time till you can see those degrees. So these, being that the Firelands puts them on every 3 years, they come here to see them. So we've had upstate New York, we've had all southern jurisdiction come up. It's really interesting who's going to be there at any given time.
And I think, if you look at Scottish Rite as a whole, yes, we're suffering from the same things that Blue Lodge is suffering from, and that's our older membership passing, and we're not gaining as many young men. I wouldn't want to wish a world war in order to make membership numbers go back up. But I think that was one of the things that really helped out in the last century was the guys coming home from World War II and overseas conflicts, that they wanted that brotherhood and they wanted that fellowship thing. So they sought clubs out like Masonry and, the Elks and the AMVETS and, all the different social organizations. So here we are, how do we do that in the 21st century where everything's online? I mean, let's face it, we are not going to put on all 3 of your Masonic degrees over a live stream in your living room. It's just not going to happen. So then how do we market that? It is important for you to come out and come to lodge and come to a reunion and be a part of this. That's the challenge for us moving forward.
Well, I like what you said about with kind of making a connection to how some of the older generation was really seeking out something to be part of, which is why we have been championing DeMolay so much. DeMolay and Rainbows trying to raise the next generation of Freemasons and Eastern Stars, because a lot of Sam and I, a lot of others of our friend group, we became Masons because of DeMolay. I joined Commandery because of DeMolay. And I think that's a major untapped resource for the fraternity is DeMolay youth group to bring up the new generation so that they want to continue on and want to be part of Masonry. And as we were talking about earlier, continuing learning. And if they already have that seed of learning, then they'll seek out the Scottish Rite too to keep learning.
Yeah.
So we've really been working on that a lot. So that actually comes up with another question that I just kind of thought of. Do you guys have in the valleys a lot of contacts with the youth groups, the DeMolays, the Job's Daughters, the Rainbows?
Well, I know for us, we at our annual meeting we give out scholarships, and they're pretty sizable. So we have, that's really, I mean, from an official standpoint, that's probably one of the interactions that we have with the youth or with memberships, children or family members who apply for those scholarships. As far as like active interaction with the youth groups, I don't think Scottish Rite does as much with that, and it's only because the venues change so often. It's not like we're going to the same place. Kind of like how, like at inspections, a lot of times either the Stars or the DMLA will help with the dinner, and then we'll help them with theirs when it's their turn. It's a little easier because it's the same house. And it's a little different for Scottish Rite when we move around so much. So it's not that there's no interaction, it's just a little different with regard to that happening.
Ditto.
What a poignant, well thought through and articulated response.
You're
Thank
welcome,
you, Brother Dewey.
I really appreciate that.
So we're gonna kind of get into the I don't want to say farewell and I don't want to say closing, but it's like the latter half of the interview where we really go into what the message of what you're trying to bring here is. Like what we can do for the future, what you want, what you think Freemasonry is, what you think Scottish Rite is, and what you would say to other people. So I'm gonna start with a few questions, and that's with how, as we touched on, things are changing in terms of communication, in terms of what people value, in terms of people's schedules. How do you see the role of the valleys either staying the same or evolving in the fraternity as we continue forward? What challenges are the Scottish Rite valleys trying to solve right now? And what good opportunities do you think the valleys and Blue Lodge are going to have in the future as we go on?
I think, technology has people completely hooked. I mean, if you want, you can sit at home, you can watch movies all night on Netflix, You can play on your phone. There's a billion things to do right out of the comfort of your own living room that didn't exist 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, right? So it's a real challenge to get, say, a movie buff to come to a lodge meeting. It's a real challenge to get someone that's my age or younger that has grown up playing video games to set the video game down, show up at lodge, right? And I think the Scottish Rite Masonry, with its set of core values, I think people are reaching a point where they're realizing, I'm not doing myself any favors just sitting around my house. I can do this other thing, and I can gain all these extra friends and build this base that's going to help me in my life. And I'm a YouTube junkie. I watch thousands of YouTube videos, but I also make time for this, because if you don't have any sort of social interaction in your life with a group of people that care about you, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
You're in big trouble. And that's why we're seeing increasing suicide rates, because people feel like they're lonely. They don't have anyone to talk to. They don't know who to talk to. And I think our organization, especially being that it's a man's organization, you have all these brothers. Once you realize that you can go somewhere and you can talk about your problems if you want, or you can learn a lesson that's going to help you be a better person, it opens up this whole universe that's right there. All you got to do is walk out your front door and it'll happen. So I guess that's kind of what I wanted to say. What do you think, John?
Is your response just ditto?
Better
Yeah.
not.
That's my response.
I think it's all balance, because it really is ditto, but there's ebbs and flows in society that are generational. I mean, we've seen it historically throughout time. I think we're getting to a place where, like you said, people are starting to say, okay, I've been on Facebook too long.
Yeah.
I've been stuck on TikTok too long. I took too many Instagram pictures today. I hear those conversations happening. And this is the thing that, yes, of course I'm going to plug it because I've been doing it for 7 years and I think it is the best. But people are looking for the thing that gets them out of the house and into an environment with other human beings because they want to be positively impacted.
Would you say Masonry to some extent is therapy for you?
Yeah.
It's therapy for me.
1,000%.
I mean, I'm interacting with people I meet in the wild better now than I ever have.
Yeah.
Masonry has, I should say, it saved me from being completely antisocial and cutting everyone out to having hope for the future.
I mean, Masonry is absolutely my therapy too when I'm nuts. Sorry, technical difficulties. Masonry is also my therapy when I'm not sitting in the East dealing with a conversation that's circling around the room for 45 minutes and people keep bringing up the same point and asking the same question over and over and over again.
Hey, you wanted the hat, right?
Well, it's not that I wanted it. I didn't crave it, but it was my turn to say, hey, I can help my lodge. Let's do this. And I know in the future what my job is going to be candidate interaction, candidate engagement. I'm going to sit on the sidelines. I'm going to go back to studying ritual rather than sitting on the side, or rather than being in an officer position.
Well, unless they need you.
Yeah. Well, no, absolutely. I'll fill any spot that the lodge needs, but I would love to.
You know what that means? You'll have more time for Scottish Rite Masonry.
Oh boy. Oh boy,
we got him.
We got him. It's like the listeners can't see us, but keep reaching for the petition in our pocket.
Yeah, they just keep bringing them out and slapping them on the desk like poker cards. Just they're anteing up every time. We're gonna get a whole pile of petitions pushed at me here in a second. But no, it's I really like what you guys have been saying about what Scottish Rite teaches you and like how to act and live, because that's always my line that I tell to people that the fraternity teaches me a way to act in the world. It teaches me a way to interact with my brothers. So I really appreciate that, and it does. I hope it does resonate with our listeners. So since we're on the topic of like advice and the message that the fraternity gives to how you interact with the world, my question now becomes, what advice do you want to give to Masons who are considering joining the Scottish Rite, and how could they better or best prepare themselves for what'll come next with their Scottish Rite journey?
I have 2 words for them. Dewey.
Just let it happen.
Yeah.
Just do it. Just do it. It
really is that simple.
It is. It's not work. It's an enjoyable process, and I don't want to I don't even
Why
know
not?
what to
It's
say.
perfect. I mean,
There's nothing to say. You just go and have a good time and learn something, and you're surrounded by people that are there improving themselves. And that's the thing with Masonry, is that in society, and you're walking down the street, you don't know what to expect when you meet a person. But when you meet a brother, you know exactly what to expect. You know that they're going to be honest with you.
right.
They're going to be friendly most of the time, unless they're having a bad day and they get really bad allergies or something, But
Yeah.
it's just a great organization from top to the bottom, and it saved me.
And that's the advice that I have is, don't let the fear and the apprehension of the unknown. It's the same as with Masonry. Why don't we have 500,000 members in the United States? Because guys don't know how to ask, or they're scared because they don't know. And so we tell them on that side, just join. Just if you come and ask, we'll bring you in. It's the same with the Scottish Rite. Once you're in and you're in Blue Lodge, guys don't. If a guy doesn't want to do a whole lot, he'll sit on the side and not want to get into the officer line. That's fine. We're not trying to make officers. But same with the Scottish Rite. We're not trying to make you join an officer line or take a huge role or whatever. Just join the Scottish Rite. Come check the degrees out. Come grow as a man. Come learn some stuff. And, and then maybe the other stuff comes on its own, or maybe you find yourself in a position where you're searching for more, and, and then that's open to you.
Well, brothers, I really like that. I think that's some good advice for the listeners who may be Masons but haven't taken the jump into Scottish Rite yet, and craftsmen who haven't knocked at the door yet. So we really appreciate that. So we like to tie this interview together at the end by asking a kind of personal question, but kind of an image question, if that makes sense. It's, how would you like to be known to Masons of the future as who you are as Masons, who you are as Scottish Rite Masons, or what you did for the fraternity, or what you did for Scottish Rite? How would you like to be known or seen, or what would you like to leave for Masons of the future? If that makes sense.
I would want to be known as someone that's approachable and someone that you could talk to about any topic relating to Masonry. And I'd like to be known as someone that was excited to promote Masonry because I believe in it wholeheartedly. And it's such a great organization that I don't think there's anything else in the world that can compete with it. So that's what I want to be known for.
Yeah, I just, I hope someday, I've actually written this down a couple times. I hope someday, 300 years from now, there is somebody who is affiliated with this fraternity that is descended from me. And now whether there's stories or, the jokes, yeah, I mean, we all kind of hope that, but I just hope that the work that I've done and the fellowship that I've enjoyed and the things that I've tried to, to help others with, I hope that resonates through the future to the point where somebody that is doing this 300 years from now at least maybe heard the name, whether they know me or not.
Well, brothers, I really like that. Brother Tate, Brother Dewey, thank you for joining us on the interview today. And we had a lot of fun. I hope you guys had a really good time. And I really hope that the craftsmen will enjoy this interview as well. Craftsmen, once again, thank you for listening to the Third Degree Masonic podcast. We really appreciate all of your likes, listens, comments, and views on our social media and all the streaming platforms. We'd like to update you on some of our contact information so that you can get in touch with us if you'd have any ideas or interviews that you'd want to schedule with us. Our new phone number is 419-855-2660. You can get in contact with us there or on our social media page. Again, we really appreciate all the effort, craftsmen. And remember, craftsmen,
Keep your working tools in order.
And always be on the level.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast do not reflect the opinions of the Grand Lodge of Ohio, its officers, or any of its jurisdictions, nor do they reflect the opinions of the northern jurisdictions of Scottish Rite Freemasonry. The opinions expressed belong solely to the hosts and guests.